Okay. Hey, all right. How are you? How are you, dude?
I'm good. I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good, man. It's nice to see you. Um, so we are
Yeah, man. Happy New Year and all that.
live on stream here. Yeah. Happy New Year, dude. Yeah. How's everything been going so far? January's been kind of.
Busy, but other than that, good. I mean,
Yeah.
busy is good.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
yes, we're yeah. How's your lockdown going?
Yeah. It's good. It's actually good, man. I've
Yeah.
been. Yeah. I've been pretty busy with work actually, which is a good thing. Um, but yeah, so I haven't had like a ton of time to uh, to look at like the spoiler and all that kind of stuff. Um, so I tried my best to come up with this little spreadsheet here, and hoping you can help me sort of sort through it and figure out what we're trying to do each color pair, by like
Yeah.
commons. I don't know if you think this is an effective way of doing it even in the first place, but commons by CMC, and then whichever uncommons fit in that archetype, because like rather either they're just super powerful and they're going to go in whatever deck, or they actually like specifically have some implications for like their color pair, and then sort of seeing what's happening there.
The less you've looked at the set, the more we have to talk about, right? So it's all good. All comes around. Um. Oh yeah. So I think that's a what I've been doing with this set actually is I've actually been starting with the uncommons more.
Okay.
So like I think for this set, the commons are there mostly to complement each deck rather than be the core of each deck.
Oh, okay.
Um, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So very much I'm looking at like what are my payoffs? Why am I in this deck? What commons complement those decks? Because a lot of the time, aside from the top, you know, top of the heap commons, the best of the best ones, the arrows can just play the removal spells, the really good creatures.
Hmm.
A lot of them, I'd say more than in most sets, aren't that great outside of their home. But in their home, they're actually quite good,
Hmm.
right? So it, I think, and the second little wrinkle in this is that I don't think many of these decks actually are very good with just commons. They just there's not enough there, basically. Like, if you try to build an elf deck, like a black-green elf deck, there's just not a lot at common that you're going to be doing other than just, like, here are some elves, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so I think that really, so much of the time in this format, you're going to be starting with a powerful card, either a powerful gold card or a monocolor card. I think it's fine to take a gold card early, and kind of building towards that until you're told not to, basically. So for each of these archetypes, I think maybe the best way to go about it is just to say, like, what do we think this deck is trying to do? And what commons support that? Or, like, what is this deck trying to do? Let's look at the things that pull us into that deck and what commons would support that the best, I think, is maybe the way I would look at it.
Gotcha. Okay. Alrighty. Let's dive in then.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
so blue white looks like the Foretell deck based on what
Yeah.
I've looked at. Just the signpost uncommons being um, Vega, who, sorry, these previews are super small. I could not find a good way of doing this. Um,
Yeah, no worries.
whenever you because the cards aren't on arena yet, so it's hard to like visualize them. But whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you draw a card. 3 mana 2/2 flying. So obviously that's working with Foretell, right? And then
Right. You want to put out there.
yeah, and then this saga gain 2 life for each Foretell card. Gives you mana to cast Foretells. Return target card with Foretell. So Foretell all day. Yeah.
Yes, working all day. Which I think is a bit of a okay. So you know how the blue white party decks in Zendikar, basically when you break them down to their fundamental levels, what they're actually doing is they're basically playing like a blue-white flyer plan. They're
Mhm.
like kind of gumming up the ground, kind of winning with evasion later in the game, drawing some cards, right? But they've got like the party synergy sprinkled in there, right? I think that's pretty much what this deck is as well. It's kind of just like a blue-white flyer deck, a glorified version of a blue-white flyer deck with these synergies peppered in as well. So, but like that's one of the versions though. One of the other core things that about the set that I'm noting is I think that these decks can be built a lot of ways based on what your payoffs are, but also like what your base color is. So if you're base white, like your like base white white blue deck is going to be built quite differently than your base blue white blue deck, right? So I guess I would say like you could be more assertive in your base white versions of this deck, where you have more of the maybe a lean a bit more into like the double spell aggressive theme, right? Or if you're base blue, maybe you want like the 06 Ox just like on turn 2 to block, and then you're just like casting foretell stuff for the cards that care about that, and then you're eventually closing the game out with like Augury Ravens or something like that. But I think it's if we're just laying these cards out, just trying to figure out what they're doing, I think it's good to just kind of do maybe a more middle of the road version, just to see kind of a good idea of what we really want.
So do you think like this is a Prince set? Is that sort of what's happening here? Or like Prince Uncommon kind of set?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I would say that, this is of course without playing, all the disclaimers without that, but of all the analysis I've done, the people I've listened to that I really respect, I think just what I'm seeing about this set is it is going to be very much based on uncommons leading you places. Like, that doesn't mean that the commons are weak, because I don't think they're weak. I think it's like so much of your draft is going to be dictated by early rares or uncommons. And so, make of that as you will, basically. Like, if you want to call that a Prince or a uncommon format, sure. But I don't think it's like, oh, you got that good uncommon, I didn't. Like, you win, I lose, right? Like, I don't think it's quite like that, because I think there's a lot of really powerful stuff going on at uncommon, but uncommon too. But I think if you want to frame it in that way, I think it would say, yeah, it is going to be kind of uncommon based, kind of in the way that a Choreo was. If you want to think back to Choreo, where it's just like a lot of times, like, you weren't getting into decks by taking commons, you were taking the cycling payoffs, you were taking the good mutate payoffs early, and you were really kind of building around those. I think it's going to be very similar to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting comparison too, because like that set became all about black, white, and red, because those decks had the common support that just always worked with whatever uncommons you were going to end up with anyways.
Yep.
And again, I'll defer to you on this, but like the white double spell theme to me seems really good, and seems like it would kind of glue between sort of any of the white X archetypes, because like a card, even like a card like the 1-mana 1/1 puts a counter on something, like feels to me like that's going to sort of fit in any, like it fits well with foretell, because you're going to be hopefully double spelling off of foretell cards. It fits well in an aggressive archetype where you're trying to cast a lot of cheap cards. Does that kind of make, like, do you see it that way, or do you see any like sort of glue thing like that?
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what, like, okay, so basically virtually every set has what you described, with like there's gonna be some of the commons are just like more just generically better, like you said with the Choreo, with the red, black, and white ones, right? So I think what's gonna happen is there's going to be some color pairs, I don't know what they are exactly just yet, right? That are going to be like you said, oh, these are the ones that happen most often, right? It's not so much about power level. I think all of them are like, at least reasonably similar in power, but like the ones that are slightly more powerful are going to be the ones that you're going to say, okay, because these commons are more supportive of the uncommons. Like, I pick a good, let's say Vega, the Watcher that we're talking about blue-white here. Let's just say that the commons, there's just more commons that end up being good in the format and support the deck. I think that's going to matter. Where it's like, okay, well, maybe blue-white isn't so much more powerful than the next best deck, but a lot of the commons just fit in, and a lot of them are interchangeable, and so I'm more likely to want to be blue-white than something else. Right? I think it's about the frequency that you end up in the color pair a lot of the time, not so much the raw power. So yeah, I think exactly like you said. I'm not sure exactly if it is going to be the white cards that are but I agree. I do like I like white in the set quite a bit from what I've seen so far, so it could be that.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, and then I guess the other thing I've tried to do here is go like, creatures tier 1, tier 2. So like tier 1 being the cards I imagine myself actively caring about when I see them go by in the draft.
Sweet. Okay.
Or like if I was, I'm kind of basing this off of some of the cube drafting that I've done, where it's like, and again, like this 1-mana 1/1, like I don't even know if this card's gonna be good or not, but let's say it fits in, like, that it fits and is a good piece in this deck. So as you're seeing it go by, you're like, if I'm in blue-white, I want to make sure that I have this. Whereas, maybe a card like Pilfering Hawk, the Snow 1/2 that loots, isn't as valuable. Again, this is hypothetical, but isn't as valuable because you're not as much caring about snow. You know what I mean? So like, where this card would be a T1 in a different pair. So like, I don't know if this approach is useful or not, but like, just sort of trying to figure out what are the cream commons in each color pair, and I guess does that sort of resonate, or is that not as important because you're just sort of following your uncommon build-arounds?
I guess I would say, so two things I would say. I would say, number one, yes, I think that the commons you want are very much going to depend on your payoffs that you picked up earlier. But two, I would say, I think the best way to do it, and it's maybe just different terminology here, but like, just identifying the cards that are the role players in your blue-white deck, right? Which are, like, I guess you'd say the tier 1 stuff, and then the tier 2 stuff is the filler, whatever. Like, I could take it or leave it, basically. I probably won't want to play these cards 9 times out of 10 in my blue-white deck. So I think, this is a good approach, right? Just saying, like, these are, because I think it's really important to identify what the role players of your decks are. Like, not the payoffs, not the Vegas of the world and Ecosify Destinies, but like saying, like, this helps this plan because of this, right? And it's sometimes not as obvious. So, for example, I would say something like God's Hall's Guardian, which you have in the tier 2 there. Like, I don't disagree that could be tier 2, but I think as far as role players go, like, role players is exactly what it sounds like. I don't think it's just generic, like, oh, this is a card you want in the deck. I think it is, does this play a role I am looking to fill, right? Okay. And so, if that's the way you're looking at it, Giant Ox and God's Hall Guardian might be a role player in that tier 1 there for the blue-white deck, because you just, like, it might be so important to be like, here's an 06 on turn 2, this blocks everything until turn 5 or whatever, turn 6, right. So maybe they're not as desirable, and so you don't have to be like, oh, I see that, that's a signal. I'm not looking at it like that, but more looking at like what you're filling the roles that my deck needs to function, basically. I might organize it like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe that's more helpful just to conceptualize the commons. Like put those in the tier 1, which maybe sounds weird putting Ox in tier 1.
Right.
But yeah, just like identifying the cards I think are going to be really important for the deck.
Okay. So for this deck, then, you're thinking like you want to be defensive early so that you can chill out and foretell a bunch of stuff, and then overtake them later.
I think so. So there's going to be turns where, or there's going to be times where you foretell on turn 2, and you like do like there will be times you just foretell on turn 2. But I think most of the time you want to be playing something that interacts with their 2-drop, especially because, you know, I don't know, 4 out of 5 color pairs or something are going to be quite aggressive, right? You're not just going to have all the time in the world to foretell your stuff, and just be like, all right, foretell, you know. So yeah, I think you do want to set up that early defense and then go from there, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. So like a card like, what's this thing? Oh yeah. So like a card like the Harbinger, 2 mana 1/3 tap to add mana to foretell stuff is going to be like an important piece of this deck because it blocks and it ramps you.
I think so. The cards in your tier 2 there that I would move up as the role players in this deck would be the Giant Ox, the Harbinger, and the Doomscar Oracle for sure. I think Doomscar Oracle is quite important for this deck actually.
Gotcha. Okay, because it's instant life gain, has foretell.
Yeah, exactly.
Comes down for 1.
Cheap foretell.
Perfect. Yeah, and like
and just
this card's probably not great. The 2/2 flyer.
Yeah, that one I think I would move that one down exactly.
Alrighty. Okay, that makes sense to me. Gold Ma Champion 3 mana 2/3 that taps. You guys I was listening to. I've gotten through part of your set review. It's quite lengthy.
You haven't gone through all 8 hours of it yet.
But you guys weren't super psyched about the Boast Tapper, as I recall.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily for this deck. Because like I think a lot of times you're going to be winning just through like flyers potentially, right? So like a Tapper does not pair particularly well with flyers, considering your flyers just get in anyways. So I'd probably move that one down, I think. So like actually maybe that's a good place to start. Maybe look at the ones that I would move down. I think like Gold Maw Champion I'd probably move down to the that tier for this deck, right? Yeah, I like that card. I like Story Seeker. I'm not sure about Codespell Cleric. That's the one that's like kind of a question mark where it's like maybe this card is just good enough in every deck because you're going to be double spelling with your foretell stuff, but maybe you just want this in the aggressive one. So I will say let's leave it here for now, but I could be wrong about that basically.
Yeah.
What's the Shield Mate? Which one's that?
This is a 2 mana 2/1 that dies into a 1/1.
Oh yeah, I'd say that's a fine role player. Yeah, let's keep that there.
Yeah, just speed bump.
And I think, yeah, that's a fine card there. And I think let's see everything else. Everything else looks about right. Yeah, the Ox I would move up.
Ox and the Harbinger. Hawk not super.
Yeah, Ox and Harbinger.
Super important in this.
Yeah,
deck.
Hawk's not super. I think that unless you're like in the snow deck, I don't think you're going to be taking snow lands. Not basically ever. Like you'll pick them up if they're free because you may pick up like the Icy Manipulator or whatever. But I don't think not enough to make the Hawk a real card.
Okay, and then
I'd say this looks a lot better. Yeah.
Okay, and then in the 3-drop slot, this artifact creature, 3 mana 2/3 foretells for 0. Is that important in this deck? Is that a good
I
enough?
don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it's important. Like it effectively is a 2 mana. It's a 2 mana 2/3 that can't block on the draw, right? Like if your opponent plays a 2-drop, you have to foretell this if you're counting it as a 2 mana 2/3, right?
Right.
I don't think it's so important to double spell in this deck, especially in the blue-white version. I think a lot of the double spell payoffs are more aggressive leaning, and especially in this deck where I think you're going to be a little more controlling. I don't think it's as important.
Okay.
Maybe I could see this in being explosive in the more aggressive versions of the deck, but yeah, I don't think it's that important here.
So not the pack beast of this.
Yeah, I don't think it's the pack piece of the set. I would be very shocked if it were.
Okay, the 3 mana 3/2 that Fate Seals them. I don't understand this card.
So yeah, it's just like a fine filler common. Yeah. Basically, like it's there to help out the cards that have to exile a card from your own grave as a cost. Basically, I think is the idea. So like you look at your own library. Okay, I'm trying to hit my land drops. I've been a creature. I can exile that as a cost later. Right?
Target player. I gotcha.
If it's late in the game, you like target them, and you're like, okay, well I don't want you to draw anything. Generally, you're gonna target yourself with this in the early game.
Okay.
And I think you're gonna target them in the later game once you've got the game more locked up.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so maybe for the blue-black deck, but probably not for this one.
Yeah, I think more likely there.
So any other 3-drops that belong up here? Like, is Mistwalker? This card is like very mana intensive, but it does block and kills them later.
Yeah, I think that's because there's just going to be like this is we were talking about the glue cards. I think this is one of the glue cards for sure. It just does a lot of things, right? Like it's a great blocker in this deck. Comes up the air and the ground. For any of the decks that care about creature types, it's great there. Giants, like it's a cheap giant, which is rare, right?
Oh, that's a great point.
I think that even if it's not going to be like fantastic in this deck, but it's going to do stuff that you want. It's going to be that cheap flyer. It's going to be, like you said, something that can kill them in the late game.
Okay. Alrighty. This card, I remember thinking this was okay. The creature type, like, if you've got X amount of creatures that share a type, is like, it's confusing to think about without having played the set, right? Like, how often are you going to have 3 for the payoff of this? How often are you going to have the desired number? Is there any sort of like thinking on that?
Yeah, I think in blue specifically, it's going to be tough. I think in black and red, if you're looking for payoffs for having a certain number of creatures, there's just a lot of berserkers, and there's a lot of warriors, and there's a lot of what was the last one? Berserkers, warriors. There's one more. I can't remember what it is exactly right now, but there's a lot. Just like common.
Gotcha.
If you look at the way that they're divided. Their berserkers just so much more than the next creature type, basically. So I think if in black and red, if you have cards that care about having this many creatures, that's going to be pretty easy. I'm low on Let Yara Kinsakers just because I think this reads as a filler card, and I think you're not going to have the 3 creatures very often, basically. If you always had the 3 creatures with that card, it'd be pretty good. If it was always a 3/5, it'd be good. But I think it's going to be 2/4. 2/4 do nothing way more often than not.
Yeah, and even like a 4-mana 3/5 isn't all that exciting. It's like a little bit of
it's got the tribal synergies.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's got the tribal synergies that you got that, but like I think it's more of a filler card than anything.
Gotcha. Okay, and then in the spells slot, I heard you guys talking about buying the monster as like maybe not as good as it looks. Do you think it's like a T1 type of spell, like you're going to actively want the first one kind of thing?
So it's actually pretty interesting because I think this is the best deck for it.
Okay.
Because what I'm looking for with buying the monster, like I think the first copy is always going to be good. You're always going to be very happy with the first copy. But I think in this deck, if you have enough Doomscar Oracles, if you have enough Glory Seekers, just like that incidental life gain to offset the life loss, I think you can play 2-3 copies of this card, and it's premium, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely premium if you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in for it in this deck for sure. I would leave it in that tier 1 there.
Right on. The bounce spell looks very good to me. The pacifism looks like it should be pretty good. It's single white and like kind of covers all the bases. So I guess it just
I have high hopes.
It doesn't have any like natural synergy with anything that's going on. Like it doesn't have foretell. Enchantments aren't a thing, but like it should just be pretty solid, right?
It's going to be better than the pacifisms we've seen in the sets of the past year or whatever. Like I'm optimistic about that. Also, not in this deck, but in the red-white deck, there are things that go grab enchantments from the grave or your library, actually. So, like, this can, they go fetch this. Or actually, no, there's even the 5-drop in this
Master Skull.
Master Skull there. So, like, you're not going to, the Bound in Gold is not going to go to the grave very often. But if you have some of the self-mill stuff, which there's a little bit of that in blue, that's something to look out for too, right? So,
right on. Okay, cool. I don't know if there's any There's this draw spell. I guess I should probably move this up, right? This has got to be better than it looks.
Hurt quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Or
think it's
better
a
than it
little
looks
bit
to
like
me.
Bind the Monsters.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit like Bind the Monsters, where the first one's going to be very good, and the second one's going to be fine, basically.
Gotcha. And then I think the rest of these, I don't know, are any of these looking out of place? These T2 spells?
I don't think so. I would say, like, the one thing that maybe looks slightly, not out of place, but I would just put a rider on is the Part the Realm there, the bounce spell.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you have, your own Enter the Battlefield effects that you want to set, or you have sagas that you want to reset, I think that you're going to want a copy or two of this. But I would say the more controlling you are, the more controlling you are, the less I'm going to want this card. Okay. Right? Because you don't want bounce spells as often in your controlling decks, just because you bounce their thing, they play it next turn, the game's going to go on for 4 more turns. It didn't really do much, right? And besides, bought you a little bit of time, right? So I would just say the more controlling you are, the less I want that card. The more tempo-y you are, the more you want the card.
Or the more copies of the signposts you have, then it becomes... If
you have if you can... Yeah, exactly. If you have Vega, that's... any foretell card is great.
Are you a fan of the plow? Looks kind of
I don't think so. I think if Giant Ox is a card I'm just looking to play in this deck anyways, perhaps that when you have these combos, it's always like, how bad are each of the pieces alone, right? Yeah. Like if the pieces are okay alone, you can play the combo and it's cool. Yeah. But like, if neither of them are desirable, you don't really want to play either of them. Yeah. In this deck, because we want Giant Ox, maybe Colossal Plow is a thing. I'm not sure yet. I'll try it out, but I don't think I would not put money on it.
Yeah, right on. Any other uncommons that I need to make sure I'm aware of for this deck?
I think so. I'm just gonna do a quick. I'm just gonna do a quick scan here. Yeah. So you that. Yeah, I don't think so. I think you listed most of the important ones, basically.
I'm like not super into the runes overall, but I think the flying one and the lifelink one seem just strong, like on their own. Do you agree, sort of there? Maybe the red one too, because they care about auras.
Yeah, I really like the. I really like the white one. I think the white one is just a great card, and I actually like most of them. I think because of especially if you have the uncommon, the crown that gets the runes, I think that card's quite good.
You like that? Okay.
And I think basically I'm happy with all these cards. The black one has some synergy too. There's like the common creature that pings something, which isn't going to come up all that much because that's like a 5-drop creature. But like giving something death touch and pinging is such a nice combo, right? I think the floor of these cards are just so good. Just you put it on a land if you need to draw a card. If you're
that's true. That's
stuck on 2 lands, right? Like these always cycle. Yeah. These have cycling.
Good point.
Right. Yeah. So the floor on them can't be too low, basically. So I'm high on all of them. I think the white one is actively great.
Cool. So I should have that included here as well. Okay. Well, I think that gives me a good. Yeah, because I like what you're saying about being defensive, building up a bunch of foretell stuff, getting them just getting them later, and then I guess it remains to be seen if we can be aggressive, 1-drops, double spelling, kind of foretelling to add the tempo later.
Yeah. So
right on. Okay, sweet. Hey Deathrite, what's up? And thanks to Action Sandy for that follow a little bit earlier there. Sorry I missed that. Okay, black white. Is there anything else you want to touch on with blue? Blue white.
I think not in the context of blue white. I think we covered that one pretty well.
Yeah. All right. Try to move a little faster. White black.
Yeah, we spent like 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll try to go faster. So black white trying to double spell. The angel uncommon is pretty gross, right?
Yeah, that card's great.
And then Ascent of the Worthy looks like it wants you to choose a creature you control. It's pariahed for 2, or you get 2 pariahs, and then you return something. Yeah, that's insane, right? So
I like that card a lot. Yeah.
So then that really makes you want to play 1-mana 1/1 with upside, right? Like both of those cards do.
Well, I mean, I think it makes you want to really just be an aggressive deck for the most part, like which I think the 1-mana 1/1 plays into as well too.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think that card's fine on defense, like the Saga there, but I think it's so good on offense. If you can just attack all your creatures in, and only one of them dies, and then it eventually comes back, like that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm a fan of that card. So I think
sweet.
I think that high level, this is a big more times than not. Where the blue-white deck, you were more times than not, I think, going to be controlling. I think in this deck, you're more times than not going to be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think there's going to be base black versions where you grind a little bit more, but I think if you're more even split or base white, you're going to be aggressive for the most part.
Sweet. Okay. So what songs? What cards do I have questions about? I'm wondering where you're at on the Ravenous Rats is going to be really good, right? They're the burglar rats for the.
I think so.
It's not like great at attacking, but it kind of ticks the other boxes that this deck wants, right?
Right. Yeah, I would say it's probably like I like the card a lot. I'd say it. I think you're just gonna play it because you're gonna have enough incidental synergies with it for it to be good. I don't think it's like a key part of this deck like it would be to some of the other decks.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe blue black and black green, right? So I like the card, and I don't think you're going to be cutting it very often. But I could also see you not taking it in lieu of a better aggressive card, basically.
Right on. The Windrake artifact enchantment guy, Starring Time Courser, should I move that down here as well?
I think so. I think it's just like, I could take it or leave him for the most part.
The Boast Tapper, same deal, or?
I would include that one in this one. This is the kind of deck that I think it's going to be good in. Yeah.
And
where actually do you want to be?
You like the pet 2-mana or 3-mana 2/2 gets flying. Yeah. And this we didn't talk about this one last time, but the Snapping Drake that you can pay 2 to cast and remove a creature, that's like really good, right? Maybe one of the top.
Yeah, I like that card quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Jarl of Forsaken, 4-mana 3/2 flash. Destroy something that was damaged. It's got Foretell I think as well, right? Yeah, it does.
Yep. So it's very similar to that card from Ikoria.
What do you think of it in this deck?
So I like it. I think that it plays really well with the Elfang Disciple, right? Like just I think this deck is gonna have a little Code Spell Cleric's gonna just be on the battlefield to you put a counter on something. Code Spell Cleric can block. It can kill it after combat or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it quite a bit in this deck. Just in the same way that if you think about it in Ikoria, the way the Black-White Humans deck played out, where you kind of just had like a bunch of expendable creatures, you'd attack in with all of them, they'd block. This comes down, kills one of them. I think the card's going to be quite good. Not like a premium common, but I think it's going to be one of the better ones.
Right on. One card I don't have in here because I probably just forgot to put it in is the one that returns creatures to your hand from your graveyard.
The Return of the Draugar, or is the
Draugar Recruiter? Here it is over here.
Oh yeah. I think that card's largely filler. I think it's fine, but it's just so expensive. The body's not good, and it's so expensive to activate.
Okay, that's kind of what I had thought as well. There's a combo, I guess, with the Master Skald returning the Saga, and you can loop them.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
You can loop them continuously,
right? Yeah, that's
right?
pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You do have to have some amount of creatures in your grave to keep the train going, keep the gas going. But if you can do that, that's a very powerful combo, right? And like I don't think again, I think this is more like I was saying before. There's going to be decks that are very much not aggressive. There's going to be decks that are more grindy. I think if you are in the market for grinding a little bit, you have the Coma's Fateful there, the 3/1 lifelink that mills 3 when it dies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've got that grind going with the creature, the sorcerer that brings back 2 creatures. Like, there's a lot of little synergies adding up here to be a good grindy deck. So don't think this deck has to be an aggressive deck either. So that's something to think about as well.
Gotcha. Okay, great. I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to... I mean, these are white uncommons both seem insanely good. The Clarion Spirit and the Usher of the Fallen that make tokens.
Yeah, both of those are
really
great.
Strong. I've got the Valkyrie in here. This isn't like a snow deck, but I guess if you end up with some of the dual lands or whatever, you could maybe play this, right?
I would guess that card's not going to make your black-white deck almost ever, basically.
Okay.
Because I think you're just not going to be able to prioritize the snow lands at the level you need to get snow consistently, basically, right? Snow is pretty hard to get, right? I think there's a pretty large gap between like just needing 1 snow land and needing 2.
Okay.
And even when you have 2 snow lands, that card's just like fine. It's good, but it's not great. I'm actually pretty low on that card in general. I don't think that card is going to be one of the better ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay.
The one thing I would note actually is I think you've got demonic gifts in the spell slot there is tier 2. I would actually move that up to tier 1, similar to the Elderfang Disciple there, where it just has a lot of nice little synergies. I think this card's you're going to be happy with a copy or 2 of this card, basically in all of your black decks, but I think black-white specifically, because you're going to be getting into combat a lot of the time. Right, it's really good with the 2 mana black creature, the Berserker, that if it has 3 power, you make a zombie when it dies.
Yes. Yeah.
It's decent with the Jarl of the Forsaken. If you look at the cards we have here, it's good with like in our tier 1. It's good with a lot of them.
Okay.
So,
cool. That's one of those...
Also, something kind of interesting. I actually just... Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's one of those cards where I just automatically don't think it's good because it often is not. But you're right. It's got a lot of good uses there.
And I'd probably shift the Revitalize down. I don't think that card's going to be very important in the deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
A cantrip isn't enough to make it...
Yeah, you're going to have this slight double spell theme, but I don't think you're going to be putting cards in your deck specifically to be like, I've got a double spell with it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Something like Village Rites, where that's a card you're just going to play because you have your Elderfang Disciples, like, incidentally, that helps you double spell, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think Revitalized only is like, okay, it's if you're only putting it in there for the purpose of, I would like to double spell, I don't think it's worth it, basically. Mm-hmm. A small little synergy I just noticed is Battlefield Raptor and Jarl the Forsaken. That's a kind of nice combo where you block through Raptor, first strike happens, you flash in the Jarl. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Do you think that the Raptor is going to be important in this deck?
In this deck specifically, I'm not sure. It could, right? Like, I think Raptor, like, white X aggro deck, like, basically the white X aggro decks are going to want Raptor. And if you are in a black-white version that's in an aggressive version, I think you're going to want the Raptor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's up, Fafoos? Welcome. Okay, so maybe we can move on from here.
Let's do that.
Berserker's really good. This Everybody Sacks is probably pretty good in this deck, too, because you're going to have a bunch of 1/1s.
I really... yeah.
Well, this is if you're I should have mentioned this before, but if you're a limited level up's patron, Alex graciously gives you a little bit of his time to help us common folk figure out limited. So that's what we're doing here. But yeah, you're right. I should just let him live his life. You know.
No, this is my life.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Red, white.
Yeah.
So, again, you can see how much love I have for this 1-drop double spell thing. But so this deck is trying to. Oh, this is the first question I had. Is this card good?
Forging?
Yeah.
I think this card is better than people are giving it credit for, but I don't think it's good. Like,
Right.
I think it is a playable card at times. Like, I think there are going to be some not completely all-in aggro decks that, like, you wouldn't play this card in an all-in aggro deck. It's just not going to be good. But I think there are going to be times you want this card where you are going a little bit bigger, you have a good equipment to get. Otherwise, no, I don't think this is a card you want.
Okay.
In like 90% of your decks, yeah.
It's fixing, yeah, I guess so.
It's fixing, exactly.
So, yeah, this deck, like, there's a tiny little bit of maybe a go wide thing going on, but mostly it seems like it wants you to equip your creatures or aura them and smash. Is that sort of what?
Yeah, it's so it wants you to do that. I don't know how much it's gonna play out. Like, I think it's just gonna play out closer to a normal aggro deck than not. Basically, like, if you end up with all of the uncommon payoffs, like the Cole, the uncommon creature, and like a few other good things, maybe you will be as a tiebreaker, be like, okay, I'll put this extra cheap aggressive aura in my deck. But I think most of the times, if I'm putting an aggressive aura in this deck, it's for the purpose of killing them, not for the purpose of synergy. Now, the synergy is a nice bonus, but I'm not like building around really the equipment and artifact stuff, or the equipment and enchantment stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you have Axgar Armory to land there, you're going to be incentivized to put an equipment in your deck, or an enchantment, and like totally do that. Yeah. Right? But I'm not changing my pick orders too highly for this deck, for example.
Okay. So, I mean, I've got like Tormentor's Helm here as like a card that it looks like this deck actively wants. Do you feel that way, or is this just filler?
Right, so I'm not positive on this card yet. This is one that I'm going to have to get a feel for to really know if we really want this in your aggressive decks or not. Because there are some sets where Short Sword is a very good card, and some sets where it's just whatever. I would say the things that I like about this card are that if you care about equipment, this is the cheapest possible thing that you can do for equipment. It's very good with the runes, right? So, like, basically any of the runes is great. The Death Touch rune, like, if you put the Death Touch rune on this thing, it's going to be very hard for the opponent to ever interact in combat, right? Because, like, you have a 1-mana thing that you can just keep moving around, and they don't have good attacks, they won't have good blocks, basically, right?
Right.
Yeah, like, it's basically good with any of the runes. I'm very happy with it. So, yeah, I think more of a synergy piece than just a good aggressive card, I would say. But could be a good aggressive card. That remains to be seen.
Okay, great. So this deck, I don't know. It doesn't look like the most supported, but I guess just like kind of like you're saying, just put a bunch of creatures down and try to get them.
I think it's going to be more just like an aggressive deck. I think it's going to be more boasting than equipmenting. Right. I would say that if we had a tier 0 for our spells there, I would put Run Amok in that tier 0.
Okay.
I think I am happy to play 3 copies of that card in my red aggressive decks. That card is very, very powerful and very important for this deck. What this deck wants to do.
Right on.
Basically, I think the idea I think is that you're gonna play a lot of 2-drops in this deck, and you're just looking for ways to leverage them, right? Okay. Whether that be through equipment or through Run Amok, and Run Amok is the more reliable version of that, I think. Your opponents are gonna really want you to block your creatures so they don't die, but also so that you don't boast multiple times, right? So that really punishes them if you have the Run Amok, which is why I think it's really important. Gotcha.
And so Frenzied Raider is going to be a premium guy in this deck then, yeah?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like it's going to be an above replacement level 2-drop. I don't know exactly like how good, because you often aren't going to want to boast on turn 2 or 3 to make this a 3/3. You're just going to want to play another creature. So, like, it's going to get a counter maybe on turn 4, maybe on turn 5, which is still good, but I don't know if it's going to be like premium. You know, a good card, but I don't know where that's going to fall.
It's nice that this threatens
I would guess
to become a 3/3 along with your boast activation.
Right, yeah. That's actually a great point. There is a lot of threat of activation there.
Like this guy, even Fearless Pup, 3 mana so much, but like, I don't know, is that good going Fearless Pup into that guy on turn 3? You get to attack with both, and they probably don't have good blocks, right?
I don't know. That's not bad, honestly. Yeah, no, you're completely right. Like, that's not bad at all.
Yeah. Okay. Any weird looking stuff in here other than Run Amok is even better than tier 1?
I would probably put Craven Hulk in the top.
Okay.
The creature tier there. Just because, like, I think that the card's just generically powerful in an aggressive deck, but also, like, okay, so the thing about Craven Hulk is, like, when green gets a 4 mana 4/4, it's not often that good because, like, green doesn't want to attack every single turn, every single game. It sometimes is ramping, it sometimes is playing a late game. But a 4 mana 4/4 that in a deck you always want to attack in, I think is a lot better. But also it's such a good 1-2 punch with the Cavalry, Daxgar Cavalry, the guy that gives haste, like a 4 mana 4/4 haste. Like, that's quite good. So.
Right. Yeah, this card's
anything.
a nice little guy.
Yeah, I like that card a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's it for that color pair.
Cool. Okay, great. So Cole is like a very high pick. The other gold is not. Is that somewhat right?
I would say so. Yeah. I really like Cole, and that will, like, he is the one card that incentivizes me to push maybe a little bit more in the. Okay, I'll include one more or in my deck than I might otherwise.
Sweet. Okay. White green. I don't really. I don't think I understand this color pair. Based on first blush, it's like the 1/1 counter color pair, except it doesn't have Conclave Mentor or something to like make you actually want to do it.
Like, there's no payoff for putting counters on your creatures other than your creatures are now bigger and they can attack more.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny. So a lot of people are kind of down on green white as a color pair from what I've my initial gatherings, because like you said, it's like, what is this color pair doing? It's kind of go widey, it's kind of go tall. The uncommons like don't support what's happening here, basically. Mm-hmm. But what I actually like this deck quite a bit because green is weird in the set where half of its cards are ramping and are snowy and are more controlling, and half of them are more aggressive. They're combat tricks, they're aggressive creatures. They're auras, they're aggressive auras, right? And so, if you look at the color pairs, I think like 3 out of the 4 green color pairs want to be snow. Like green-blue, green-red, green-black. Green-black a little bit less so, wants to be elves, but can have some snow in there.
Mm.
And so, basically, I'm seeing white-green as a home for all of the aggressive green cards that don't go anywhere else, basically. You don't want an aura in your snow deck, or a combat trick, really, in your snow deck. But this deck can make use of all those green cards that nobody else wants, and they're not bad cards. They're fine on rate, right? Like, they just don't really have a home. So I think what this deck does very well is makes use of a lot of cards nobody is going to want. And as far as big picture what it's doing, you're going to have some go wide stuff, but I think you're also going to have some go tall stuff, and I think this is probably the best Battlefield Cleric deck, I would say. Oh, sorry, Battlefield Raptor. Well, Battlefield Raptor plus Codespell Cleric, they're kind of good friends together.
Yeah.
Right? But I think because you can put your Arachnoform on this and protect it with Snakeskin Veil, right? I think Snakeskin Veil is a card I would move up in the tier order here. I think that card's quite good. That card's quite powerful, I think. The difference between leaving a counter and not, so like Ranger's Gaia, like we've seen in the past, is really big.
True.
So I'm in for this card.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So I think sometimes you're going to go wide, sometimes you're going to go tall. Again, depends on your payoffs, depends on your enablers. It's really going to be draft to draft, really draft, who knows?
This card being the main reason to want to go wide, I guess.
That card is very good, right?
Yeah,
like it's just a
good.
very powerful card. You play it on turn 5, it pumps all your creatures, and you start pumping out 1/1s if it sticks.
Yeah, I like it. Sweet. Okay, so the thing I did notice is that the green uncommon snow cards all look quite powerful if you can set them up. But maybe not so much in this archetype particularly, but like...
I think similar to, what was it, Black-White, I think you're just not going to be picking up snow lands all that often in this archetype. Like, maybe you will if you start on the path of, like, I'm going to be a green snow deck, and then you audible into a white deck, like, you pick up good white cards later. But I think if you're starting on the path of, I'm a white aggressive deck, I don't think you're going to have time or prioritize the snow lands to be able to play the snow cards, basically.
Right on. Alrighty. One card we didn't talk about is Iron Verdict.
Yeah.
Is that sort of... I've had it in the T1 slot in all of these decks. Is that sort of where it is for you, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think that... So not in this deck in particular, but like in your more defensive deck, is very, very good. Basically, if you want to attack, you want Bound in Gold. If you want to block, you're gonna want Iron Verdict.
Okay.
If you want to block, Bound in Gold gets worse, subtly in a weird way, because basically one of the problems with Bound in Gold style cards, right, these pacifism cards, is the longer they stay on the battlefield, the more likely things are to go wrong for you. They have a bounce spell, they have a sacrifice outlet, or something like that, right?
Oh, okay.
So if my game plan is to block, I'm planning to go long, and so Bound in Gold is going to get worse as the game goes on. On the opposite side, if you're playing to attack, Iron Verdict just isn't that good, right? Because you don't get a creature out of the way. So, shorthanding that to aggressive decks want Bound, defensive decks want Iron Verdict.
I see. So, white-black could potentially want it if you're grindy, but maybe not as much if you're swinging out. Red-white doesn't want it.
Right.
I have apparently wisely put it in T2 and the white-red.
Nice.
And then the blue-white deck definitely wants it because it's got Foretell, and as we said before, you want to be on the defense. All right, sweet.
I would say so.
All right. Blue-black looks pretty sweet. Lots of snow stuff happening here. This Narfi? Pretty strong, right? Just continually coming back.
Card's good, yeah. The thing about that card is I think it's actually going to be... more of a splash card in blue-green than an actual blue-black card. It's going to be fine, I think, right? But I think it's going to be much better in your green-blue decks. And I think this deck, from what the commons are telling me to do, but also what some of the uncommons are telling me to do, I think it's just going to be a blue-black control deck more than a snow deck. Like, you're going to want snow for your Priest of the Haunted Edge, and cards that care about snow, but I think you're just going to be... you're going to be later on snow than the green decks would be, I would say.
Okay.
So that's like... maybe not. Maybe you just pick up enough of the snowlands, and because black snowland isn't going to be as high in demand to the rest of the table, because mostly, people that are drafting snow are going to be wanting to draft blue and green snowland, more likely. Maybe your reward is black snowland, right? But I would just say that this deck exists somewhere in the middle of the heavy snow decks and the other decks we're talking about, where you're going to pick up snowlands, I think. You're going to have the time to for this deck. You're going to be incentivized to, but not as heavily. Which is weird, because then that makes Narfi worse, because Narfi's triple snow to activate, which is a lot. This is one of the question mark decks for me, honestly, because I'm not exactly sure what makes me want to draft this deck, other than good black and blue cards, and I don't think that's a very common... I don't think it's going to be a very common path in this format to get into a deck, like I said before. I think it's going to be very much like, take a gold card, build around that, or take a powerful uncommon, build around that. See if that's open. And this doesn't really pull me in any direction in that sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't see like a ton of really exciting things other than wanting to be able to return this guy continuously, which then, your
Yeah.
priest gets better. I don't know, your random like. But these blue snow guys aren't even very good, right? The Yeti and the Bergstrider.
Yeah. I think Bergstrider's okay. I don't like Yeti very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Bergstrider at least comes down, stabilizes you. But I think Yeti is just so medium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So remain to be seen. This would be the home for the Valkyrie, right? The 2/2 flyer that.
Yeah. It would be, I would say. The problem, I think, is that in your blue-black controlling decks, or in your controlling decks in general, you can win with basically anything, right?
Mm.
And so, you could win with this, sure, but it doesn't really block particularly well the turn it comes down, or the turn after it comes down, because you can play a 3-drop and hold up snow. That's the thing, too.
Mm.
But I think this just... unless I'm underestimating how much snow a snow deck is going to get, and I don't think, I'm making comparisons to, sets that have had snow previously.
Yeah.
But having snow is not going to be trivial, and I just don't know if I love that card, the Valkyrie.
Okay. Cool. Alrighty. I think that'll do it for this one then.
I think there's not too much about blue-black to talk about.
So, red-blue is another confusing one because it wants you to play with giants. Now, you brought up a great point, which is that Mistwalker is a giant, which I missed.
Yes.
Missed. So that's good. We haven't talked about the creature snap-on equipment things. This one looks to me to be one of the better ones. They all kind of looked... I heard you say on the set review, like you're thinking they're good because there's a whole cycle of them and they devoted all the design space and stuff. Like, what are your thoughts? They seem too expensive to me, generally.
So basically, I think they're all good. If I were to rank them, I would put this one. The red one is at the top for sure. I think that card's very good. I think that card's just fantastic. Then I'd go some combination of blue, black, green, and then the white one last, I think. Basically, the more with the way I'm evaluating these is the happier you are with both modes, right? Playing it as 1 and playing it as 2, the better it is. Now, this one's not playing it on 1 or playing it kicked. Mm-hmm. This one's not one of the ones you're happier to play unkicked, basically, but it's very good when you kick it, right? Just a 5-mana 4/5 hexproof that comes down and blocks everything.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's exactly. Yeah. Fought Foos is exactly on the nose here. It's gonna block everything the turn comes down. It's gonna be really hard to get through. I like the card in this deck too. I mean, it's just a good giant, right? So.
And it's this is Fafu saying if you're the control deck, this is the control deck, right? I'm not really seeing a tempo spells aggro deck in this pair.
Yeah. Blue-red is a control deck for sure.
So I
think you're gonna want to build it as a control deck. Yeah.
High toughness creatures with the giant type, and then, kill all of your opponent's stuff with there's the Pyroclasm, and then there's also is there a rare? There's a rare that does 4 to everything. That's not a giant, right?
Yeah, the Battle of Frost and Flame or something like that. That card's insane. That card's very, very good.
And then I guess
I think this. Oh, good.
Can you imagine casting that and having this guy in play?
Just drawing a million cards. Oh no, it actually won't work because it's Giant Wizard or Spell, right? Not Saga.
Oh shoot. Okay.
yeah, unfortunately, but it works with the Pyroclasm effect, the sorcery, right?
If they've got the X one.
So I think this deck is like you said, it's going to be a controlling deck, and I guess I don't know exactly how much you care about. Like, there's going to be cards you care about giants for. The rare Invasion of the Giants wants you to have 5, 6, 7 giants in your deck. But aside from that, I think you're just going to focus on being a blue-based control deck. So I wonder how good Craven Hulk is going to be. This is another question because like it's a giant. Sure, it has giant creature type. But if your deck is a 12 creature deck, an 11 creature deck, you're not going to want Craven Hulk in the deck very often because it's just not going to be able to block all that often.
Right.
Right. And that's, for your control decks, that's kind of a disaster. Right. So I'm not sure if that's in the tier 1 just yet. I think it's just a good card, but, remains to be seen.
Okay. And, yeah, too bad this isn't a giant. It's a troll instead.
Oh, the mob. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Mob, but
that'd be nice.
I guess 5 mana, 4 toughness anyways. There's one other thing. Oh, yeah, this Basalt Ravager. So this is like a skeleton archer by itself, but if you've got a couple of giants, then you're actually nugging something.
Yeah, that card's real good. That card's really good.
Just a strong card in general, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be a premium card for any deck, right?
Yeah.
Like, and basically any deck in the format. Especially like I mentioned before, there's a lot of berserkers just in general, especially in red. And so you're gonna be able to, and this goes to face, which is wild too.
Yes.
Right? Like you just hit their face for the last few points.
Haven't really seen a spot for open the omen paths. I suspect this isn't the deck for that. Is there one?
No, I don't. I don't think that's really a card in the format.
Fair. Any other weird looking stuff here?
No, I don't think so. No, like, I think this deck more than most is going to be like you get like if you're in the deck where you get all the blue red gold cards, I think you're going to be kind of in business. But the commons in this deck don't really form a shell that I'm interested in. Basically, is the way I'd put it.
Yeah, that looks right to me. I mean, there's only two drops that are even like here, and they don't even really do like this 2-mana 2/2 give something haste isn't really what this deck's trying to do. Maybe the ramp creature is good for it, but yeah, okay, sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
On we go. We haven't talked about Augury Raven, but it seems like is that like the best blue common?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Like, I think it's good. I think it's going to be a little bit overrated, honestly. Like, it's a good card, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that the cool thing about the card is that, like, you're going to be able to play that thing on turn 3. And if you can, like, double spell, that's great. I don't know exactly where it lines up compared to the interaction spells / the Behold the Multiverse even. That might be a more important card since the blue decks are going to be quite controlling. Right. So, like, it's good. I don't know if it's, like, easily the best one, though, or anything like that.
Gotcha. Okay, so blue-green, this is your snow multicolor splash kind of deck?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to be... It's kind of a hard one to build because you're not exactly sure what you're going to want.
Yeah.
You're going to just take the cards that you're going to be able to cast, basically, outside your colors. Removal spells, rares, whatever So, like, I think this is the one that it's probably important to spend the least time on an actual skeleton here. Because, like, I'm just not that interested in playing, like, Frostpeak Yeti and, like, these, like, filler blue commons. Like, these aren't going to be the important part of the deck, basically, right? Yeah. I think the important part is, like, your snow enablers, which are, like, Glittering Frost and Sculptor of Winter. I think those are very important.
Okay.
But, like, past that, it's going to be very interchangeable.
Sculptor of Winter. Oh, yeah. Snow and ramp. Like it. And the hawk is...
And being...
probably good, too.
And being able to untap your land that you put Glittering Frost on, that's pretty nice, too.
Right on. Okay, I like it. This guy's probably not great. Harbinger's probably not really at home in this deck either. Okay, sweet. Here's a card that's kind of weird. Finn the Fang Bearer.
Yeah.
Thanks for the follow, M. Lori. Appreciate it. Gets 2 poison counters. So, I don't know. Is there a home for this, or is this kind of just like...
So, like this is just a fine card on base rate. Like 2 mana, 1/3 death touch. That's a good rate. It's gonna be very annoying to deal with.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I have this in a comment.
I think there are going to be times you actually do kill your opponent with the poison ability. Like one of the combos is the Black Green Saga. It gives your creatures all death touch on the 3rd chapter.
Ooh.
So if like you've gotten in a hit with this earlier, maybe twice, and a few more creatures get in, you're gonna win the game. But it's gonna come up very infrequently.
Yeah.
Generally, just look at it as a 1/3 death touch.
Which is totally reasonable in a deck like this.
Yeah,
just
totally reasonable.
Trying to block and stuff. Okay, cool. So this set doesn't feel very super aggressive now that we're sort of looking at it. But so then there's this Lindworm. Given those Honey Mammoth vibes.
Honey Mammoth, baby.
This card seems pretty good, right? Like, and then it's got the. There's not a ton of synergy with this card, but if you have the worm, this becomes pretty good, right? The 5/4 dies, search for a 6 toughness creature.
I think that's basically the only. Like, there's just very few 6 toughness creatures in this set.
Yeah.
It's like one of the only ones that I'm looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. Get the Ox with it if you want. Okay,
yeah, true.
Sweet. Okay, well, I guess we can move on from that. Black Red. Your favorite.
Yeah.
So this one looks pretty aggressive, and there's a little bit of sacrifice stuff going on.
Yeah, very, very, very light. I don't think you're going to make any deck building concessions to it, but it'll come up. You never know.
Frostbite versus Demon Bolt. Pick one, pack one.
I think Demon Bolt. I think Demon Bolt's just 4 damage is a lot. Being able to foretell it is nice.
Yeah.
So I'd probably.
Yeah.
I think I'm on this card as the best common right now. I could change my mind, but.
All right, sweet. Yeah. So I don't know what's. There's not. I guess there's not a ton to talk about. This this deck doesn't have. There's like I guess a little bit of double spell potential with the pet, and the Blood Sky Berserker, just because you're trying to be aggressive. Like those cards will just incidentally be all right here, kind of thing.
I think Black Red is very much like as it often is. It kind of has these pockets of synergy borrowed from other decks, basically. Yeah. Where you're going to have some of the double spell stuff, you're going to have some of the equipment stuff, some of the dwarf stuff, right? It's kind of a mishmash. There's going to be synergies between the commons that you notice, of course, too. But I think it's not doing like one general thing. Like it's not doing one specific thing. I think it's just going to be an aggressive deck, and you're gonna build your deck from there, basically. Yeah. The only I would say Shackles of Treachery probably is I don't think the Steel Sack thing's really going to happen in this deck. I'd probably move that down.
Okay.
The tier 2 there.
Yeah.
There's just one sacrifice outlet in the whole set. I'm pretty sure, or at common or uncommon.
Village Rites, yeah. And then Cardur's Return.
Sure.
But I mean, you're still you're not trying to really do that. I guess if you had a couple of these, you might draft a Shackles. But you
7 mana.
7 mana.
Yeah.
7 mana. This card looks very good though. Sacrifice your
Burger I love Rats. That card. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that card's great.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And 3/1 lifelink. This is probably should be moved up, right? 3/1 lifelink.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how important it's going to be. But the more similar to white black, I think you're going to have some red black grind decks and some red black aggressive decks. If you're the red black grindy deck, you're going to want this to recur stuff. Right. Use your creatures from the grave as a cost. if you have more way downs, you're going to want this card, so on and so on.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of like micro synergies going on in the set more than the.
Yes, this is very micro synergy heavy deck.
More than the Zendikar, set, I would say. Like, here's the one thing your deck wants to do thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Green black looks like the rock with some elf stuff, kind of, but not like a ton of elf stuff.
So like I was saying kind of before, is that yes, there are a lot of elves, but there's not really reasons to be an elf deck at common, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the uncommons and the rares are quite good in this deck. So, if you start with a Herald or a Binding of the Old Gods, you're gonna want to just play anything that says elf on it a lot of the time.
Right.
This deck doesn't have any like explicit synergies other than just wanting elves for those cards that care about elves. But I think you're generally just going to be like a board and then like attack all over the course of a few turns, like almost like a go wide deck. But then again, with the black, some attrition elements where you can like attack all, buy back some creatures, attack all, do that kind of stuff. I would say I think King Harold's Revenge is actually probably going to be a pretty good card in this deck. I think you're just going to have enough creatures where that's just going to get in a really big hit of damage at some point.
Okay,
like,
here it is.
I'm looking for ways to leverage all of my small creatures. And I think this is a decent way to do so.
Must be blocked this turn if able. So you'd put this on a 1/1, and then if they've only got a couple of creatures, one of them's got to jump in front? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so like they can block with their worst thing, right? But they're gonna take a huge hit of damage. That means your other things can get in. They have to block that one thing, for sure.
Right. Okay.
Like, I don't think it's a premium card or anything.
Yeah.
But I think it's gonna be, at home.
This is where it's supposed to go. Cool. Snakeskin Veil is better in this as well?
Say probably not, because like a lot of your thing, I mean, you got a few maybe important cards, but a lot of your cards are more expendable, right? Like, the more you care about your individual threats, the more you want Snakeskin Veil. Like in that green white Raptor deck, you really care about like the Raptors really getting in multiple times, right? But in this deck, I think you're just gonna have a lot of random things that are just sitting around that you're not gonna care about anything individually.
Right on. Okay. And then there's obviously a ton of snow. Is this like one of the decks where you're going to be really prioritizing the snow lands?
Yeah, I think as if we're thinking about paths in the draft, again, if you're starting green, I think you are, but I don't think you're going to like necessarily need to be snowy in this deck.
Okay. Alrighty, and then last one, red green, beats, I guess.
Yeah, it's red green snow.
Ramp?
I would say it's very similar to blue green, but just with red cards, which is kind of weird because red really only offers the removal for this deck. Like, a lot of the red cards are not very controlling, and so like this one is gonna come out. You're gonna draft this deck when you start green and red is a little bit open, but you have the good snow payoffs is what I would say, and maybe you pick up like this fella there. So I think this is more controlling than it is aggressive. So like I'd probably move like the aggressive cards down a notch and the defensive cards up a notch in general for this one.
I see. Okay, so less about playing cavalry and giving a 6/6 haste, and more about blocking and sort of developing some kind of like overwhelming amount of mana engine or something like that later on.
Yeah, I think, look, you can still attack and block in this deck just fine, right? Like, you're gonna have those good draws where you just happen to run over the opponent because your creatures are well sized. But I don't think it's going to be your plan A.
Is this like a good vault robber deck, or does this card fit anywhere? It doesn't seem.
I don't know, but like this card I don't think is very good. Like, it could be. But if there's a deck for it, it might be this one.
Yeah.
But I don't think this card is that important in general.
Yeah, yeah, that was one of the more confusing ones. Okay, so, I don't know. I thought this was common, I guess, for some reason. I don't know why I put it in here. So more of a snow deck. So this is a more important card than this. And this, I guess, is still fine. 2-mana 2/2 that hastes things is pretty nice.
Yeah, you're gonna want some number of bears just to block in your deck, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
comes a fine one.
a lot of 3s in this particular color bear for whatever that's worth. Glittering Frost probably moves up. Cool. Okay. Right on, man. All right. Well, I think that was super helpful just to get for me to get an idea of what's happening. Because, yeah, the set is like, every card is like a wall of text. And then as I'm reading, as I'm reading the comments, I'm like, wall of text. And then I'm just, at the end, I'm just kind of like, okay. Like, I don't know.
It's like when you read, a paragraph of a book and you're like, what did I just read? Let me read that again. Like,
And then I'm not like overly excited about the power level of the card. At common, the uncommons, like you said, are all very nice. But yeah, okay, great, man. Well, thanks for taking the time.
Of course.
And if folks want to, I'm sure you all know who Alex is, but if you don't, he's at Cord at Cord_O_calls, and the podcast is Limited Level Ups. And become a patron and get sweet coaching sessions like this one, because they're super helpful.
Yeah.
And I think that sums up. Is there anything else you want to impress upon me about this set? Or
no, I think not. Not right. If you listen, if you end up before you play, listen to more of the set review, I think a lot of my opinions are there. But I think a lot of the stuff that we touched on today is gonna propel us to at least into the first week, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sweet, man. All right. Well, yeah, I'll let you go. I've taken up a ton of your time already, and I'm just gonna play. Is Cube still a thing?
Yeah, Cube's still a thing.
I'm gonna hang out in Cube for a bit, so I don't know. I'm sure you've got better things to do, but yeah, thanks again, man. So we'll talk soon, and good luck at the first week. Yeah.
Thanks. All right. See ya.
All right, Alex. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Yeah, dude. Yeah, of course.